Now we have time for some questions.
Thank you very much. Robert Louis Lettington from UN Habitat. I'm curious in Okan's presentation, particularly the maturity model. The core elements of it are particularly related to technology and the smart aspects of city delivery. But the KPIs, as we saw with the presentation yesterday or the day before from Puyi, for example, they presented quite detailed information on their water delivery system. Now, obviously, water and sanitation engineering systems are quite complex. How do you pull in that kind of expertise and experience to be able to make the maturity model robust where it applies not to ICT technology but to other fields?
Thank you, Robert. If I understood the question right, and looking at the model that we have, the 6 areas that I have highlighted, strategy, ICT, maybe infrastructure, services, those are almost common areas, the foundation for the overall city approach. So they apply not only to water, but even to others as well. Those are the common areas. But on the other hand, the KPIs themselves, and we have KPIs in the U4SSC, for example, for water consumption, for efficiencies in water, for IoT enabling water infrastructure. So those areas that Puyi also mentioned, I remember, the U4SSC KPIs, would be covered in the last slide that I have shown, where you put, first you define your baseline, and then you also put a target. So that's where those things would be covered. But the initiatives, if you are interested in what you actually do, we don't have that in the maturity model. The action items that we do help us to move the needle from the baseline to the target. And we had actually lots of debates, I remember, during the formulation. For example, there was a debate that the long-term target, level 5, would differ from city to city. We thought of putting a certain target for all the cities globally, but that did not actually work out. We had lots of discussions during the formulation of the standard. So each city would put its own target. Now, you might say it's an easy target. Baseline is 10%, target is 15%, maybe very easy to achieve. That's okay, but that's the city's strategy. If they benchmark, we actually recommend cities to benchmark also in the strategy. If they benchmark, then they would realize that their targets are not so much stretch targets. They are probably comfort zone targets. So that's what the standard says. I know there are certain areas that are debatable, but we wanted the consensus of all the member states when we did the maturity model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Okan. There is other questions? I want just to add one point. When in ITU we wrote the KPI, we have, I remind, on the focus group, a lot of discussion about the scope to have a KPI. The idea is just not to give a classification of a city. So when we write a KPI, we need to take more general in a way that will be adaptable to the different possible solution and what we found on the world. We need to have a KPI that is applicable to Dubai, to Rome, to Valencia, and to Nairobi. So it need to be considered all these possible application on this. Other question? No? So maybe I can make a question to Ziqin. He's my friend. It's interesting the representation that you said, the use case that you gave by China of application of SG20 standard. Do you know if there is some other application in the world on this? Not only China?
For the smart city platform, and yes, and we have collected the global applications for these recommendations, and ITU TSB prepared a document to, I don't remember the name, that is the railroad proposed in Canada organization, and we have collected the application use cases for Y dot 4,200 and 4,201, and we have the application in China, in Spain, and some of the country in Africa, and also I don't remember all the names of the regulators, and I think that at least five or six countries proposed their use cases, and so TSB collected all the use cases and prepared a document for the Canada Railroad event. And maybe if we really get the railroad, and I think that ITU will publish the information in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziqin. I call him in Chinese way, not in a sensible way. And I like to have made a question to Jesus, open not to put him in a not nice situation. What do you think that ITU can do more for help Spain country, Spain municipality to implement smart city?
Okay, in Spain, space is inside Europe, and the main contest of a smart city begins in the European Commission with the fiber platform. Then platform is the first open platform and try to become standardized. Then in Spain, the first idea was because the Telefónica, one telco, very important telco, but the main interest was in fiber. But in Spain, we had a lot of platforms. For example, the platform from Indra and different platforms. I prefer don't talk about the different possibilities. Then, first of all, we create a common. We began with the recommendation in order to get to identify common points with the. We have had in that moment 7 or 8 platforms. Then we create a special group of work in order to discuss the possibilities. Then with reach an agreement about this. This agreement was after that supported by the ITU. Then at this moment it's not only an international agreement, it's an European agreement and it's a work supported by the ITU agreement. This is our conclusion. Okay.
Thank you, Jesus. So if there is no other questions, we can close now the session 2. Yes, Jorge?
Yes. Thank you, Paolo. And as a Vice Chairman of SG20, I would give a little more information of our work, and so I will give it very briefly. That for study group 20, we are working for Internet of Things and smart cities. Actually, the area is related to Internet of Things and smart cities, and also identifications for trust and security of Internet of Things. And we have working on very detailed area, for example, wearable devices and drones and disaster reliefs use the ICT and IoT technologies. And currently and usually we have about 180 participants for every plenary meeting, and usually 14 to 15 countries come to the SG20 meeting, and we also have the sector members, that is usually for the companies, and the academia, usually the participants come from universities and also have small and medium enterprises as members. So, and we work very closely, and for example, China work very closely with Spain delegations, and we're working for the KPIs and working for the smart platforms. And we also have the example of Spain that they have bring the national standard to ITU, and then we discussed in SG20 level, and we also bring the Chinese standard CCSA to ITU, and we discussed it broadly, and if it can be applied internationally, then the national standard can be international standard. So that is the working approach, and so you are welcome to participate in our work. And then the next meeting will be on 26 November to 6 December in this year, and you are welcome. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, Ziqin. So now we can close this session. Thank you very much for your participation, for your explanation. And now it's time to have with us ITU for starting the next section of this of today's journey. Please, Irina.